I'm here with the family and friends of Daniel McGowan, and what we're here to do is basically to talk about Daniel McGowan's case. He's an environmental and social justice activist. He's been sentenced to 7 years in prison for 2 acts of environmentally motivated property destruction against companies doing old growth logging, planting genetically modified trees in like national parklands. But what we're also trying to do is situate his case in this larger thing called the Green Scare, which is basically kind of a term that was coined to discuss like the campaign of government repression against environmental and animal rights activists, regardless if they're engaging in legal or extra-legal means. Now Daniel, the actions that Daniel was part of were claimed in the name of the Earth Liberation Front, and so I mean, and they did involve arson. Because they were claimed in the name of the Earth Liberation Front, all precautions were made to make sure that nobody or any animal, human or non-human, was harmed in the actions. That the government, at his sentencing, would say that they gave him a terrorism enhancement, and so that the government to equate property destruction with terrorism, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you just even go back in history, right? I mean, Boston Tea Party, for example, a very famous and feted act of property destruction that people celebrate as like, you know, revolutionary and about freedom and, you know, all sorts of things. But one of the things about, you know, the fact that the government considers environmentalists and animal rights activists the #1 domestic terrorism threat, which is, you know, also absurd that, you know, the Attorney General under Bush would even say such a thing. Is the fact that, you know, it is actually supposed to be a chilling effect, because they're not only investigating people like Daniel or like people who are engaging in radical actions, they're also targeting groups that are, you know, extremely above board. You know, it's like, what? I mean, if you look at documents, you know, terrorism, you know, risk assessments, you know, documents. I mean, they mention groups that are like, what? Like Greenpeace, Sierra Club, you know, Mercy for Animals. There's an activist, animal rights activist group called Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty, the acronym of SHAC, right? And they were successfully prosecuted under the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, and for running a website that was against this company, Huntington Life Sciences, that, you know, kills hundreds of beagle puppies. They were undercover, you know, documentaries of them like punching them in the face and like performing heinous experiments on rabbits. And the actions that they were, you know, that they mentioned were stuff like home demonstrations or like sending faxes. The fact that they would equate stuff that Daniel did or what the Shack 7 did as terrorism, I mean, it's a disgusting abuse of the word.
So what effect does the Green Scare have on, you know, environmental activists?
Well, something that's important, I mean, the thing is that what we try to make sure that people understand is that we're not trying to scare people, you know? I mean, this is just something to understand, is that this is what the government is doing. But, I mean, when you understand that, I mean, you're able to actually, like, you know, combat it by, you know, remaining smart. I don't know if you go to like the Earth First Rendezvous, or for example, but is that the government sends agents provocateur, you know, to these groups to, like, you know, try, like, are you familiar with the case of Eric McDavid at all? Well, Eric McDavid met someone named Anna, who was basically a paid government agent at like a crime thing convergence. I don't know if you're familiar with crime thing. It's just this you know, anarchist activist group, and you know, they, you know, were talking, and, you know, he mentioned that he wanted to do like actions for the environment and stuff, and so basically the government gave Anna the go-ahead to materially create an ELF cell. She paid for them for their plane tickets, she paid for, like, you know, gave them recipes to create, like, you know, incendiary devices, and like gave them money and paid for their food, and in the end actually flew them all out to this cabin in the woods near Sacramento where they were supposed to like engage in some kind of action. Now, Eric McDavid, and they were all caught, I think, outside of a Walmart with, like, you know, I don't know, supposed supplies. 2 of them cooperated against Eric. There were 3 people arrested, 2 of them cooperated against Eric. Now Eric actually never ever did any kind of action. I mean, he's doing about 20 years in prison simply for conspiracy. But even if you're doing low-level stuff, or even if you're just like an above-ground group, just be very careful of people who are trying to push you into doing something that you're either not comfortable with, and they're not listening to you, and they're always kind of like trying to do this kind of like insert themselves in a way that, like, especially people you don't know.
So, like, one effect that the Green Scare, would you say, has had is that people feel like it's hard to trust, like, new people that come around?
Well, it's not necessarily he knew people, but the thing is, like, especially with Eric, is that, you know, I just brought that up as, like, a specific, you know, kind of case. It's just that, like, it's not to trust people, but to make sure that you're always comfortable. I mean, because the thing is, like, the 3 people that got arrested, they at many different times said, like, we're not comfortable with this, we don't want to do it anymore, and this person kept pushing them.
Right, but do you feel like, because, you know, since I learned about it, and, you know, like that woman was saying last year, there was some, you know, hydrofracking activists were under attack, like, even just for seeing a documentary. It was like, okay, so now we have to be paranoid just because we're organizing, you know, regardless of what we want to do.
Well, I mean, I think being cautious is important. But what should, I mean, being cautious is important. It shouldn't prevent people from doing, but I think one of the reasons why we're trying to bring these things up is so that people understand their rights. You go to the NLG, the National Lawyers Guild website, and it explains what your rights are. So you know exactly, you know, what you can do, and, like, you know, so you don't feel scared. And there's actually also, and I mean, this is for people who are involved in, like, anti-hacking stuff. If, you know, cops approach you, try to harass you, or you see people that are videotaping you and you don't know who they are, you should. There's a hotline number.
Oh yeah.
Anybody can call. Yeah. But there's a pamphlet, so people, they're not alone. There's people who can definitely help you, and, you know, to know your rights, to understand the context of, like, how things are happening, allows you to act in a manner that, like, will generally protect you. I mean, it shouldn't be paranoid, but you know, being cautious and understanding what the situation is will actually allow you to navigate it in a much safer way than if you just don't know what's going on and suddenly you're getting, like, a conspiracy charge for something crazy.
Because even if it's, like, mild civil disobedience, people, you know, might you know, find you along the route.
Well, the thing is that very often what who the government targets are, like, groups that you're like, I don't understand why they're targeting. I mean, if you're going outside of just, like, the environmental group, they usually are always infiltrating peace groups and, like, groups who are like, what? Why? You know, like, these groups.
Why you waste money and time?
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, they're easy for them to go into because they hold open meetings, they're open, they're friendly.
They get to use them in their statistics.
Exactly. People are acting suspicious or sketchy. You know, be open, but, like, you know, maybe do some, like, minor reconnaissance and find out, like, where they live. You know, like, if their information that they're giving you is adding up. Try to see if you can meet some of their family members.
Do you think the green scare is, like, gonna, like, how, like, when is it gonna go away?
Well, I mean,
or when
it's like, it's not gonna go away because, I mean, you know, what it boils down to is that, you know, the state and capitalism is never gonna want to
like, preserve the environment and stuff.
It's not gonna just change, like, overnight.
Or does it want to go away?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, the fundamental thing about environmentalism and also, like, the idea about the animal liberation and animal rights.
Do you feel like we could do something, though, that would, like, protect environmental activists from being labeled as terrorists and being, like, harassed or
I think
targeted?
I mean, this is one of the reasons why we do events like this, is because we come and we want to actually really talk about what these terms mean. You see them in the newspaper, I mean, just parroted, and people don't really understand. I mean, the way things are phrased, it's like, oh, property destruction is terrorism.
Well, you know what?
Property destruction sounds bad, so...
Right. Well, green scare is a great term as well. It's like, I think environmentalists created a meme to turn it around.
Well, the green scare, I mean, the reason that term specifically was created was to sort of mimic the Red Scares of, like, the 50s. And at that time, the boogeyman was communism, right? And so, like, there was the same thing. There were specific targeted prosecutions, grand jury investigations. You know.
I think this is great that this table is here at Earth Day, New York. You know. Like,
we've done it now for 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't notice it last.
I'm sorry. I hope I've given you some.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be its own video within itself, just on this particular subject matter.
Well, I'm really sorry I don't have the NLG pamphlets, but both of you should come back. Like I said, if you're here after 3, and, you know, make sure you come back and get some stickers. Those are free too.